Hi, I'm Quence, and welcome to another week of reviews for Season 2 of the Playdate, Panic's handheld gaming console. Each week, 2 brand new games from different developers appear like magic on your Playdate system. Week 4's games are Shadowgate PD and CatchaDiablos. Alright, to begin, Shadowgate PD is one that I've been anticipating for a while now. This was developed by Pixel Ghost, who previously made Life's Too Short, which became sort of an early indie favorite on the Playdate and was developed entirely in Pulp, Panic's accessible, free-to-use programming language. Shadowgate PD was also made using Pulp, and it really demonstrates the versatility of that program. Pixel Ghost has been working on this project for a while. I was following along with some of their updates, and the fact that Panic decided to pick it up as a Season 2 game is really cool. If you've never heard of this before, Shadowgate PD is a remake of the original Shadowgate, a dungeon-crawling point-and-click adventure game from 1987. My first exposure to Shadowgate was through the Game Boy Color version, so I have a lot of fondness and nostalgia for this title, particularly in a handheld format. In the game, you're presented with a series of rooms filled with doors, items, torches, and perilous traps. Everything you can do in Shadowgate operates through a menu, which you can access by pressing A, bringing up a list of selectable actions such as look, move, take, etc. When you first enter a room, you'll probably want to use the look action on anything that seems important to get more information. Then you'll be picking up what seems useful or trying to use items you've found previously in order to progress. You also have torches, which are your life and your timer in this game. If your torches ever run out, you lose and you have to start over from the very beginning. So every time you enter a new room, you'll be picking up torches from the walls, and you'll need to light them from your inventory when they start running low. Honestly, it feels a little silly explaining this game that's nearly 40 years old, but I'm sure there's plenty of gamers out there who don't have experience with it still. This Playdate version is technically a remake in that it was completely remade from the ground up in Pulp. All the artwork is new, the items and interactions were re-implemented, the music is new. It's not a simple port. By all accounts, it was a real intensive labor of love to rework everything from the original game and put it to the Playdate's specifications. However, if you were not aware of that fact and you aren't a Shadowgate superfan, you'd be forgiven for thinking of this as more of a straight port than what you would typically think of as a remake. It's extremely faithful to the original, to the point where it basically just is the exact same game. All the puzzles and solutions are the same, the castle layout is the same, the art is different, but it's still a faithful interpretation of the original art, and it is just as harsh and unforgiving as before. As usually comes with the territory of games from this era, this is a punishing adventure. Death lurks around every corner, and you should get used to seeing this game over screen a lot. Then there's the torch system, which undeniably feels dated in the modern gaming era. Also, some of these puzzles are just obscure. There are a few that I still remember the solutions to from back in the day, but a lot of them I don't, and many of them simply require a lot of trial and error or looking up walkthroughs online. There was definitely an opportunity here to streamline Shadowgate or modernize it a bit with quality of life features. The closest Shadowgate PD comes to that is a new autosave feature, which returns you to the last room you were in after dying and reloading your save. This is nice, although it could result in burning through torches faster than you'd want to, and it doesn't remove the load time you need to endure getting back to that screen. Other than that autosave thing, there's really nothing significantly new here. It's Shadowgate as you do or don't remember it, perhaps with some minor tweaks to the way the inventory works, things like that, depending on which version of the game you're more familiar with. So the question is, does this game still hold up, and is that enough to make a satisfying experience on the Playdate? If you've never played this before and you're not looking for a difficult puzzle adventure game, you might be completely turned off by the amount of trial and error involved here. Like I said, a lot of it is pretty antithetical to modern game design sensibilities, and you have to know what you're getting into. If you do know what you're getting into, I think that Shadowgate is kind of a perfect fit for the Playdate. The graphics translate really well. I think the new music is a suitable replacement for the old. The vibes are vibing. The brutal black and white art style, combined with this spooky medieval atmosphere, really lends itself well to the Playdate's screen. The start and stop nature of the game also makes it ideal for handheld play. Sure, it can be frustrating to die because of something you couldn't possibly predict, but there's also a satisfaction in learning from those mistakes until eventually you can get through the whole game quickly using all the knowledge you've gathered previously. You know, it's that old school Groundhog Day video game kind of thing, and you're either going to be into that or you're not. I've seen the game's developer responding to feedback and saying they'd like to implement things like hints or a mode where you get more torches, so hopefully that comes to fruition and we do get some quality of life updates to make this an easier way in for newcomers. Otherwise, this is Shadowgate, plain and simple. It's the only straight-up licensed game translation I can think of on the Playdate, so that in itself makes this one interesting. I can understand anyone who might be critical of its rigidity in adhering to the original game, but I also do think it's really cool that the original game is now playable on here, with almost no concessions made to the gameplay. I don't know what newcomers to the game are going to think about this, but as for me, I just think it's neat. Oddly enough, this week's second game is not a rework of an existing title. Instead, it's a roguelike demon battler called CatchaDiablos. At least that's how I'm saying it. CatchaDiablos comes from Anno, who also made the cute little Playdate puzzle game Pole Frog. This one is pretty much all right there in the title. There are lots of little Diablos running around, and it's your job to catcha them. The way this works is that you can only move in circles. You turn the crank to position your circle somewhere around your body. Then, if you hold any button down while also continuing to turn the crank, your character will actually move around the circle wherever you've placed it. A bunch of different little monsters will be roaming around the level, and if you complete a circle while one of them is inside of it, you'll capture them and they'll disappear. Eventually, a boss will appear, and if you defeat them, you'll move on to the next level. CatchaDiablos is a game that really took a while to grow on me, and I was almost ready to write it off straight away after my first time trying it out. It really does itself no favors with its lack of tutorial or guide, something that's unfortunately pretty common for a lot of these Playdate games. On the first screen, I was confused for a couple of minutes because I just had no idea how I was supposed to move. Then there are more details that you can pick up on as you go and aren't essential, so you might miss them completely if you're not paying attention or reading about them online. For instance, as you play, these power-ups will appear, and if you draw a circle around them, it will reveal a relic which gives you a bonus ability like faster movement or a bigger circle. I thought they were just appearing randomly, but in fact, they appear somewhere in the level every time you fill up your meter on the right-hand side of the screen by catching enough monsters. Then there are also these little X's in the dirt, and if you encircle those twice, you can find more power-ups buried underneath. Usually those ones are temporary powers as opposed to the permanent ones, but they can often be health recovery, which is vital if you're getting damaged. Once I locked into the fact that I should be concentrating on catching Diablos in order to acquire power-ups as quickly as possible, the game started to make more sense. Without explaining the basic rhythms, the game feels a little aimless and alienating at first. This isn't helped by the controls, which definitely take some getting used to. You really have to rewire your brain from virtually every other game you've ever played, because you can't just move from one point to another. You have to move in these circles. Some enemies will fire projectiles at you, so you need to be ready to move out of the way of those and try not to accidentally circle in the wrong direction, something I do frequently. Running into enemies will also take away your hearts, and I found the hitboxes of the enemies pretty hard to predict. When a bunch of them are near you at once, it can be real dangerous to try to catch any of them at all, and you'll find yourself possibly panicking, trying to escape, getting hurt and killed, which is a bummer. Some enemies will come towards you by themselves, which I found actually makes it easier to catch them compared to the ones who bounce around absent-mindedly, making it very hard to predict when and where they'll end up in your circle. For some enemies, the best maneuver is to start a circle and wait for them to come to you, but when you're actively trying to get power-ups before the boss shows up, that isn't always the best option. After a certain amount of time, the 3 eyes at the top of the screen will all open up, and you'll face the boss. There are a few different unique bosses that you might encounter in each stage. I thought all of them were pretty fun to go up against, definitely very unique feeling, but depending on your playstyle, you may find that one that you just don't know how to beat effectively, and that can put a real damper on your fun. This is definitely a roguelike, and I tend to prefer my rogues more on the light side. Nothing carries over between runs or deaths. The main progression system is your diablerie, in which you have records of the enemies you've faced. During play, you'll randomly find pages which unlock pictures and text about those enemies. I think it also shows how many times you've killed them and how many times they've killed you, but I'm kind of guessing about that because the game doesn't actually tell me what those things mean. Anyway, the diablerie is sort of like Pokemon. You gotta catcha them all. And so CatchaDiablos comes with all the usual advantages and disadvantages of a traditional roguelike. Sometimes you'll just have bad luck. You won't get any power-ups that are helpful, you'll get stuck with difficult enemies, and you won't make it very far, and that's just how it goes. Fortunately, the runs do go by pretty quick. I think a full successful run from start to finish might last you somewhere in the range of 15 minutes or so it doesn't hurt too bad to lose and start over again. But because there's not a real progression system here, your desire to keep playing will be determined by how much you enjoy the core gameplay and how much you feel compelled to try to fill out your diablerie. Like I said, I found it tough to get into this one at first. The controls and movement are just so strange compared to most games, but eventually something did click, and I started to really enjoy this one. Maybe it's some kind of Stockholm Syndrome. Maybe it's that simple driving force inside of me telling me I can do better if I just attempt one more run. Maybe it's the completionist in me that wants to uncover the secrets behind all these little freakazoids. Certainly getting a better understanding of the power-up system helps, because you will find things that will make movement and capturing more efficient, and it's that reward system that makes it addicting. If you're willing to take some time to adjust, there's a very fun game here, although it won't take you too long before you've seen most of what it has to offer. A cool mix of games this week. Shadowgate is Shadowgate. It's a classic. It's frustrating. It's there for you to play, warts and all. Your feelings about it, if you have them, will not change, and whether or not you will enjoy it is really dependent on the kind of player you are, but I think it's very cool that it's included here. CatchaDiablos, I went on a real journey with, where at first I thought maybe it was one of the least interesting titles of the season. Now I think it's one of my favorite games of the season. Maybe it's because I just do really enjoy that roguelike gameplay. I find that loop very addicting if done right, and I'm still having fun trying to complete my runs and get all of the little critters in my encyclopedia. We'll see how long that joy lasts. Let me know what you think about this week's games in the comments. If you're a Playdate owner, are you a Shadowgate fan? Do you think that this one works well on this version and this handheld? And what do you think about CatchaDiablos? Did you find the fun like I did, or did you bounce off it real quick? Talk to me down there, and stay tuned to my channel for more Playdate Season 2 coverage coming soon.